It is 6:30 p.m. on January 28th, 2025, and I'm calling this regular City Council meeting into session. We are going to start with a Pledge of Allegiance from Jaylee Laduna and Olivia Alonji, Bastrop Middle School National Junior Honor Society members. So come up here. And everyone stand.
Nope. Pledge allegiance. Oh, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, ladies. Colin over here is going to come over and take your picture. Hold on one second. Don't run off. There you go. And if everyone would remain standing for our invocation by Robert Oliver, City of Bastrop Police Chaplain.
Let's pray. Almighty God, creator of the heavens and the earth, we commend this meeting to you. We ask that all things will be done with wisdom for the sake of this community, for the prosperity, the health, both mental, physical, and spiritual of all the citizens of this town. We pray for all the members who are here who are expressing different views as they reason through arguments and try to come to agreement. We pray your Spirit would guide and direct to a better understanding of your will for this community, which we ask your blessing and your protection. We pray this in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen. Okay. Now we will move on to council reports. We'll start with the Mayor Pro Tem's report. We have had activities and events in the city of Bastrop and meetings and things that are almost every single day for the last couple of weeks. Numerous of us on council here participated in it, but I'm going to tell you about a few of those things. So the first one is on January 16th, we had a joint planning and zoning council meeting for a comprehensive plan workshop. There's a few other comprehensive plan topics in here that I'll bring up briefly. On January 17th, we held the Chamber of Commerce banquet, or the Chamber of Commerce held a banquet, Staying Alive in 25. We had a special appearance by Councilmember Plunkett, former Councilmember Crouch, and Chamber Member Alfonso Cifuentes as the 3Gs, a Bee Gees tribute lip sync band, which brought us one of the greatest photos ever taken by mankind.
I'm going to have to call a point of order here.
On the 18th, I went to the Downtown Evening Lions Club regional event and presented a city proclamation to them, honoring them for their regional leadership conference they were having that day. On the 20th, we had the MLK Walk and Celebration here in Bastrop. We held that at the Convention Center due to the weather. On the 22nd, we had a special city council meeting for short-term rentals here. The 23rd, a comprehensive plan open house at Casa Chapala. The 24th, a city New Year's party. The 25th was special. It's the Bastrop County Emergency Food Pantry Empty Bowl fundraiser. They set a record with more than 700 people in attendance. It was a huge success. Parking was not to be found anywhere. And there was excellent soup all around. You could certainly tell who's been there before because they were walking around with muffin tins. They were kind of the experts at knowing how to get as many pieces of soup at one time as possible. Congratulations go to Lost Pines Inc., which is a private chef for broth-based winner. Southside with jalapeno popper chicken soup as a cream-based winner. The chili winner was Hyatt Lost Pines Resort and Spa with a smoked brisket Texas chili Grace Miller for table presentation winner, and the fan favorite was Abyssinia Cafe for black lentil soup. And so I just want to say a special thank you to all of the restaurants that participated, because this is one of those things that makes our town special, and you all helped make that happen, so thank you for that. This weekend, we have the Bastrop Mardi Gras celebration. I'll let Kathy Danielson fill us in on that, but that's a big deal for us as well, so make sure that you are aware of it and participate. Okay, that's all I'm going to say, so I'll pass the floor off. Councilperson Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem. Good evening, Bastrop. So pretty much everything the Mayor Pro Tem stated,
Yep.
I also participated in. I also, though, wanted to congratulate Tanya Cantrell on her 25 years of service. I will have 25 years of service at my job in April, so I know what that feeling is. So I want to congratulate her on that. The appreciation dinner was this past Friday. Which was very well done, very well. The venue is perfect for that type of thing. The music was great. The decorations were, the Mardi Gras theme was great. It was a nice evening and a way to celebrate the employees. The Empty Bowl project, it was actually the 20th year of the Empty Bowl project, and Mayor Pro Tem is correct. I snuck a parking spot somewhere maybe I shouldn't have parked, but I did. And the lines were around the door starting at 11, around the building starting at 11. It was pretty packed. By the time I left, it had thinned out some, but I had a 10 thing. I was expert at it this year, better than I was last year, but I only got to try like 4 soups. So I'm sorry I didn't get around to more, but I had to leave. But it was definitely jam-packed. And I also wanted to congratulate the food pantry on breaking ground. Having been here and actually known the person that founded the food pantry, she was a longtime member of my church, a mentor at my church, growing up as a child. To see them finally break ground on that just makes me want to tear up every time I ride through there. So I want to congratulate the food pantry on not just even breaking ground, but having a building paid for before it's even on the ground. So great job, Bastrop Food Pantry. Thank you.
Councilperson Meyer.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland. So I know I'm going to keep this brief because I know why a lot of y'all are here tonight, and it's very exciting about the Christmas parade winners, so I can't wait either. But I'm going to make this short, and I just want us to think back about a week ago from today and what was happening outside. And it was white everywhere, snow and ice, and most places were closed down. However, our city police, our fire department, our public works, EMS, and all of our departments were still working to keep us all safe and sound and warm. So I want to send a big shout out and thank you to all of those people. And also during that time, Pastor Nava, with his In the Streets ministry and shelter, opened his doors to warm people and keep them safe, as did the Calvary Episcopal Church, open their doors for a nice hot dinner and breakfast for overnight stay to get out of the cold. So thank you so much to those two entities that reached out. We're not a community without all working together with people and entities like that. So thank you so much.
Councilperson Plunkett.
Well done. I don't see how I could add to that.
Councilperson Fossler.
We talked about the bulls, so I'll talk about the birds. We got the Bastrop County Audubon installed a new purple martin birdhouse at City Hall yesterday. They gifted it to us. Thank you, Bastrop County Audubon Society. This is their third that council approved, I think, 2 years ago. They also installed another one at Bob Bryant Park yesterday as well. And they wait until the first one is filled because purple martins are very they like to have full houses and they like to be around people. So if you ever see them, they like to be where people are. So they're very fun to watch and very flitty about the purple martins. So there's one at City Hall and 2 at Bob Bryant Park now. And then I also wanted to tell y'all that First Fridays is back. We took January off, but February 7th and 8th, it's always the first weekend of every month. The main event organizes it, and there's a theme for every single month. So the theme for First Friday, it's February 7th and 8th, is Hugs and Kisses. And then Friday night, all the shops will be open late and there'll be interactive activities all up and down Main Street. And then Saturday, there'll be activities at Found Fine Art, and then the Lost Pines Art Center always participate as well. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilperson Foster. We're now going to move on to 4C, announce the winners of the Christmas parade. Ms. Danielson, I have a question. Are these results public or known, or are they being announced for the first time right now?
I think this is the first time they're aware of it. Our participants are aware, but this is the first time unless commented on social media, because we have not, so this will be the biggest.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so I have all of the awards here. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them, it looks like. So I'm going to go through each one of them, announce who the winner is, and then you can come up and take a picture up here. In fact, maybe I should just go to that podium to read them. John Kirkland, 1505 Main Street. Yeah, is that how this works? Yeah. Okay, so we are going to start with Best Reason for the Season entry, which goes to the Pentecostals of Bastrop Church. Best Emergency Vehicle Decoration, presented to Heart of the Pines. Best Group Entry, presented to Blue Bonnet Electric.
All right, sure.
Great, thank
Can I
you.
get a photo as well? Sure. All right.
Thank you, thank you.
All right. Thank y'all. We enjoy participating every year.
Best Car Group, presented to the Blue Flame Cruisers. The Honorable Bill Peterson.
What's that honorable all about, man? You're here. Thank you. We can call him and put you back to work. Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Back on Sunday. All right. Thanks, man. Thanks.
Best Marching Band, presented to Cedar Creek High School. So I was a drum major in high school.
Awesome.
Yeah. And trombone player.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Most Original Entry, presented to Parabec Plumbing.
I know you. Thank you.
Thank you. Best Pedestrian Group, presented to Bollywood Fitness. Most Beautiful Lighted Float, Lee County Fair Association. Okay, now we're moving up. Overall Best Lost Pines Christmas Entry, third choice is TCS Mechanical. Overall Best Lost Pines Christmas Entry, second choice is the Bastrop Animal Shelter. And last, overall Best Lost Pines Christmas Entry, first choice is Texas State Park. We're now going to move on to item 4E, presentation regarding Mardi Gras.
Mayor, council, city manager, and guests, it's the week. Today, we're having a party across the road. The senior king and queen will be crowned tonight. The senior citizens group and the Lions Club of Bastrop are very active over there as we speak. We kicked it off at Lost Pines Toyota. I know many of you were there, and Carlos had a great turnout. So moving on, the rest of this week, looks like the weather's going to be beautiful on Saturday, about 71 degrees. We're going to
Thank you for that, by the way.
well, or the chamber or the good Lord, that's who I like to thank. But Friday night, we will have the Mardi Gras Ball. And we will have the Nash Hernandez Orchestra and the Jean-Pierre and the Zydeco Angels will be with us that night. And 6 o'clock on Saturday morning, we will begin to put that Mardi Gras festival together. The Gumbo Festival, the Gumbo Cook-Off will be going on beginning at 8. We will be doing a salute to Fred's with KVPI, the radio station coming in from Louisiana. We'll start at 8:30. The Mardi Gras Parade will begin at 10 o'clock. The vendors will start moving in between 8 and 10, and once that parade is over, that crowd will just move on in to downtown. Last year, we had approximately 10,000 people attend. Last year at this time, we had 35,000 hits, likes,
Engagements.
shares.
Yeah.
This year, as of today, we're up to 247,000. So we are expecting a large crowd. We have people coming in from Louisiana starting, I believe, tomorrow. Some of our guests will be getting here, as from Arkansas. And we're just ready for a big time. We have new sponsors this year. We have D.R. Horton, we have H-E-B, and we have Bluebonnet Electric, who's kind of come on board. We have partnered with numerous organizations throughout the city to put this on. And we're so grateful for all of our partners to pull this off for us on Saturday. We will be shutting down the parking lot beside Gracie's and across the street. The one across the street will be for the Gumbo Festival. The one at Gracie's we're having to shut down due to safety reasons. We tried to keep that parking lot open last year, and it just became a safety hazard real quickly. So we're going to keep that one shut down, let the vendors go in there because they're there, they stay put until the festival is over. We've extended the entertainment until 7 p.m. on Saturday night, and the party, we hope, will then just go on into the restaurants and the other establishments. We do know the Louisiana folks will probably keep it going for much longer than 7 o'clock. I will probably be in bed by 7:05. But I would love to answer any questions that you may have, and just thank you for your support that you've given us and allowed us to have this event again this year.
So can you run through on each day what we're doing? And I know that you did. I think I was just struck by the grandeur of it. So
Okay.
So we have Friday evening at
the convention center will
Right.
be the ball.
At what time?
The doors open at 6:30.
Okay.
And the band start at 7, and then we'll have dinner and a cash bar.
And it's pronounced Zydeco, right? Not Zydeco.
Zydeco. Did I get a little nervous?
No, I said it wrong last
Oh,
year.
you did? I was like, I could have.
At Farm Street Opry, and then
Oh.
had to go and apologize,
Okay.
yeah.
Zydeco, Cajun
yes.
Zydeco. And then on Saturday morning at 8:30 will be the first thing with the KVPI radio station, Salute to Fred's, at Gracie's. And I can tell you, last year at 8:30, that Cajun music started playing, and those Bloody Marys started flowing, and those Louisiana folks were in town. And then the gumbo cook-off will start. Those teams will get there, start preparing their areas. Special thank you to the Juneteenth committee, because they're the ones that came on board this year to take over that gumbo cook-off for us, and we're really hoping that it'll be a great fundraiser.
When does the public part of the gumbo cook-off?
It says that they're going to start serving at noon,
Okay.
right? And so I'm sure that could be 15 minutes before, but that's what they're promoting at noon.
And the parade starts at 10 a.m.,
At
right?
10,
Right,
yes,
so we've
sir.
got 8:30 is the Fred's
yes,
broadcast.
sir.
10 a.m.
Is
is
the parade.
the parade, and it's a parade route that does not cross Chestnut.
Yes, we will line up in Fisherman's Park. We will come up to Farm Street, then we'll take a left on Church Street, go all the way north till we get to Cedar, turn on Cedar, go down Main, and then take a left on Spring. And we keep that festival all north of Main Street or north of Chestnut, because we're setting up the festival on that south end. And then once that festival's over, everyone comes on in. The DJ will be on the stage at 11, and the first band starts at 11:30. We have the world-famous children's chicken chase at 1 o'clock. And there's a lot of excitement going on around that event. We have the Louisiana folk root group will be at the library from 12 to 3, and that's with all of the instruments from Louisiana, teaching the kids, letting them hold it, letting them play it. It's just a very educational experience for our children. And then we will have Steve Riley over at the Ascension Church. I believe he starts at 2:30 to 3:15, and he does an educational thing for our children on the Cajun Zydeco music.
And all of this is on a website?
Yes, sir. www.bastroptxmardigras.com. And that has a list of the schedules, all of the activities.
Perfect. Thank you.
But thank you.
Councilperson Meyer.
I just want to thank you so much, Kathy, because last year you knocked it out of the park. Everybody knocked it out. We didn't know how much farther it could go, and obviously it's out of the world this year. So thank you so much, and your whole tribe, for all the hard work that you all do. Thank you, Juneteenth Committee, for all the sponsoring and everything you do. And I'm a little partial, so I'm going to say good luck to our city manager, because she's going to enter the gumbo competition. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know how gumbo will have a Mexican twist, but it will.
You'll figure it out. Okay, we're going to move on to item 4D, year in review presentation. Madam City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Collins. Going to pull up the presentation, and I'll get myself situated. So 2024 was a very, very, very full year. We're going to go through a comprehensive timeline, monthly timeline, some budgets and some projects that we have ongoing, and then set the stage for 2025, which is already off to a very robust start. So how did we do in 2024? Well, you know, a person named Mr. Musk came into our periphery and was mentioned quite a bit in 2024. And so what happened is Bastrop exploded and it became a household name. On average, 700 mentions per week over the course of 2024. And we felt it. We felt it with the media presence. We felt it with interviews from Canada to Brazil and everywhere in between. And we felt it in the Development Services Department where speculation started. Folks started buying a property sight unseen, sometimes in the floodplain, sometimes in the floodway. And we've been having to manage some of what people believe is the home of Mr. Musk. We haven't had to deal with him. We deal with his people. I'll just say that. And then it was characterized by, again, continued revamp of the B3 code and some infrastructure improvements and some enhancements of public service, namely in the areas of public engagement. So, some key highlights. We did adopt the transportation impact fee that took effect in December of 2024, and for the residents, that is development paying for itself for new streets that will affect traffic. Traffic is a major quality of life driver, and so council adopted almost the highest fee that it can over a period of time. The BEDC sales tax was allocated to streets. Later on in the meeting, we're going to talk about debt service, and we're going to talk about why that was one of the most strategic things that council could have done. I will say it again, from a city who comes with $1.5 billion street problem, and that's billion with a B. You will never borrow your way out of a street program. You have to be in a pay-as-you-go, and you have to be strategic with partnerships. We created a recreation division in the Parks and Rec and also adopted the Parks and Rec master plan. We launched the feasibility study for the sports complex. We adopted a budget with no tax rate increase, and we increased staff retirement to a 7% match, matching everything around us, and a 20-year retirement in hopes that we can continue to keep quality staff. Those are just a few of the things we're going to dive in. So our major themes, again, community engagement, transparency, and to that end, the citizens adopted a charter amendment that changed the number of what constitutes a quorum. And Councilmember Foster led the charge on that, and here we are. So now conversations are limited, and our new attorney firm has, we've been posting for a possible quorum on all of our meeting agendas. Our new legal team has a different outlook on what that should mean, and so we're going to have a training on what that's going to look like. So let's go on a month-to-month. January, you approved the $3.3 million to streets, the transportation impact fee, the MLK walk we didn't have because of weather, and the old Iron Bridge design costs were approved. That was the beginning of getting the bridge rehabilitation done. We are in the throes of the bridge rehabilitation. There was a new endangered species, a bat, that we had to do some tree surveys and some other things that have set us back, but hopeful to be back on track in the first quarter of 2025. In February, well, this was the inaugural Mardi Gras celebration, and as Kathy said, she knocked it out of, or Councilmember Meyer said, she knocked it out of the park. We had more people than we thought possible. Beignets were a commodity downtown, and you could, fetch a fair price for those things. Unfortunately, the Bearded Baker will not be open this year. There is another person doing beignets, but I'm not sure that they're going to be to the Bearded Baker's level. We'll have to find out, so go try out. The Minerva Delgado mural was approved. Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland himself donated $1,300. Councilmember Lee led the Minerva Delgado Park mural along with Parks and Recreation, and if you haven't seen it, it's beautiful. We did begin our ethics process against former Mayor Lyle Nelson, and that's a theme that continues. It's only mentioned a couple of times because we have much better things to focus on. The West Bastrop Village mud was amended. Many of you have received emails about the road and the road conditions. The mud did take over those roads, and so those will be continuing conversations as the school continues to build and that big heavy traffic is going up and down. They'll have some maintenance to do at the end of that to make sure the residents are made whole. The septic requirements were reduced to match state law. That had been a restrictive item in the B3 code. That'll give relief to some of our residents on the larger parcels, especially off of Hoffman. Speed limit on 969 was reduced, hallelujah, and Corvette Invasion was funded. So, Yesterfest, also another theme. When I interviewed with the council, they said bring back the Pet and Pal Parade, bring back Yesterfest, and bring back Boo Bash. Here we are, plus Mardi Gras. So the Fairview Cemetery received a donation of an ornamental fence that was used to separate some very sensitive areas in the cemetery. And two properties were declared historic landmarks. We executed the COREX agreement that would serve SpaceX, which also began the rush, the gold rush, the land rush along 969. We partnered with WCID number 2 and Bastrop County to repair streets in Tahitian that were previously double taxed as part of the WCID tax. Hopefully we will complete that agreement. The county will accept the streets and those residents will go from double taxation to single taxation, all through partnerships. And then in March is when the Parks and Rec Master Plan was officially adopted. In April, we held the joint HLC, City Council, and the P&Z walking tour. We walked through several areas of town talking about the impacts of the B3 code. The Gateway project was presented to a quiet audience that we'll see later on turned into a loud roar. The Hot Fund Task Force was created, and that was in response to Visit Bastrop. The Bridging Bastrop leads the work plan discussion. At the point of 2024, the Bridging Bastrop board was the only board who had a viable work plan, and so they led the discussion on how you should do it, what's important about those work plans, and how we all relate. Later on, P&Z at the joint boards and commissions celebration that's held at the convention center, P&Z led also a focused, led by Chair Harris, a focused attention on how each of our boards interact with one another and why it's important we continue to have discussions. Little things that you don't think about, that the Bridging Bastrop board, for example, with handicap accessibility, why that's important, and they should be attuned to subdivisions that are being created in parks and amenities, and so we all wrap around each other. The lease agreement with Bastrop Christian Church was approved, and that relocated the utility office to 600 Spring Street. It's a small, cozy office. The staff gets along well, thankfully, but that made room for the EDC offices to move into City Hall. And if you've not seen the new EDC offices, I encourage you to do so. It is a great space. The Bird Junction sculpture locations were discussed, and I believe we're discussing some of that again tonight. That is the bird sculpture that was introduced right outside of the convention center. Our contract with PHI Health was approved, and just so you recall, that is our helicopter that serves as ancillary emergency to our ambulance providers. And the Bastrop Opera House incentive was tentatively approved for $1 million over 10 years. And for council's edification, we have not cut that first check yet. We will probably be cutting that in the next 30 days. In May, Councilmember Meyer was elected for a full term, and Councilmember Foster was seated for her first term. The charter amendments were discussed. Colorado Bend was officially de-annexed from the city limits and the ETJ. The Gateway project that had by this point turned into a very loud roar was denied. The IDIQ, which is indefinite quantity, indefinite delivery for engineering service, was approved. We ended with multiple firms that will provide better cost of service for the city. And the first ever Festival de la Cultura was held at Mayfest Park. Dampened a bit by the rain, not quite the expectations that were expected. I know there's discussions to continue it this year, but we've got some things we need to close the loop on. In June, we had the Juneteenth proclamation. The council approved the BEDC's Accutronic agreement, and that is the microturbine company in the industrial park that has created a partnership with BISD, an internship partnership. We appointed to the Charter Review Commission. They had some heavy lifting work to do. You are still discussing some of those charter amendments tonight. We'll go into executive session to discuss that. We began property acquisition for floodway and floodplain properties, and the ESD 3 ambulance service petition was received. We did amend the sex offender ordinance, and the comprehensive plan code amendment was approved, and that began our next iteration of discussions, which are going on this week on Thursday at the library. TerraPave was explored and it was approved. Unfortunately, the product didn't have the longevity or the desired effect, and so it won't be a product that we'll be using in the future. And that is the Harriet Tubman sculpture that was on display at Kerr Center. Beautiful sculpture that really captures the essence of Ms. Tubman. In July, we had our Big Bang celebration. We started budget review. We annexed 10.5 acres on 969 for a commercial venture. We closed the RFP for solid waste, selecting TDS. We waived permitting for the food pantry, and as Councilmember Lee mentioned, they're going vertical now. The DEI board was renamed to Bridging Bastrop. Mike's Bikes at Fisherman's Park was approved. Mike's Bikes has still not opened. I'm hoping we can get that over the finish line. Farm Street Village acquisitions begin, which we did later on acquire Farm Street Village, and the recall petition was received in July. In August, we begin our Visit Bastrop budget discussions. We get really serious about how we're spending the money and what the transparency is for that money and the checks and balances for that money. The chair, Lee Harrell, was really instrumental in getting us over the hump, because at the point of the discussions in August, there was a real critical discussion as to whether funding for Visit Bastrop would continue. Mayfest Parks received their repairs over the period of a couple of months. The proposed tax rate was presented, no increase. We had a $38 million bond issuance to cover remaining projects of water, wastewater, and streets that were previously issued. Feed the Need was approved at the farmers market, and you'll see them on Wednesday afternoon. The recall petition was received. It was disallowed. A cure was sought later on. As we are aware, the petition was approved. The charter amendments are decided. Decriminalization of marijuana makes it onto the ballot. We'll be talking about that charter amendment this afternoon. And the proposed budget is submitted for consideration. And finally, we adopt a public service policy for the library. I know this sounds like a lot, but this is only 1/5 of the items that are on each agenda. September, you finally adopt the budget. Yay, everybody breathes a sigh of relief. The Reed Ranch PDD is approved, and that is located between Burleson East and the Riverside Grove subdivision. The rules of procedure for City Council are amended. You finally approved the BEDC revolving loan fund, which received its second iteration yesterday at the BEDC, that now puts the onus of the application on the actual lender. The petition is certified for the recall. Our HA5 treatment is approved, and we get started on streets. The BPNL engineering study for the fourth feeder that would feed the east side of town toward Buc-ee's gets started, And we're expecting that to be completed early this year. The consolidated financial report is presented and approved, and you guys appoint to the Bastrop County Appraisal District. I'm almost done, folks, I promise. Boo Bash, roaring success. Great number of people downtown. Everybody goes to the TML conference. $3.2 million for Agnes Street is approved. We're still waiting on the council to get the dates together to get a ribbon cutting for Agnes, and hopefully that'll happen very soon.
That's not delaying the work, though.
No, it is not. You're right. The Elgin Courier becomes the official city newspaper, and the Bridging Bastrop Board makes their presentation to City Council as per their requirements. You would think that we'd slow down in November, but this holiday, the last quarter of the year, gets very busy for staff. So much so that we can't have our Christmas party until January. So Wassail Fest, Small Business Saturday, lighting of the tree, the Veterans Day. We do an interagency loan with the cemetery board that gets the columbarium project off the ground. We ended up bringing a lot of that work in-house, and I really want to thank the Streets Department, John Uddleton, and Water Wastewater Curtis, who really reduced the cost of that, and it was nearing 7 figures, reduced the cost of that significantly, that made the project feasible, because we are loaning from the general fund to the cemetery. And they have the revenue to cover that repayment. It's, but we remember that we want to keep the plots accessible to folks. In December, we continue the Christmas Parade and Merry on Main. The interlocal agreement between Bastrop County, the City of Bastrop, is completed. We do electronic warrants now via cloud gavel. TikTok is removed from all city devices. You approve $100,000 from fund balance to repair a playscape at Bob Bryant. B3 code amendments, fast and furious, parking, impervious cover, ADUs, and other changes are made, and the landscaping and mowing contracts are approved. Now, what does that mean? What is, how does that impact? Well, so our budget, it was a $17.7 million budget, and it was a 4.2% increase from the previous year. Cost of living for employees, infrastructure improvements, and street rehabilitation were the top items in that budget. Again, no new tax. Our revenue streams are coming from property taxes, sales taxes, and other. And that large swath in sales taxes continues to be a concern, because that, when we have swings like COVID, those are the ones that take a significant hit. So we need to be very cognizant and continue to diversify our revenue streams. Personnel and capital outlay in 2024 remain some of our larger expense items, followed by contractual service and then debt service. And again, we're going to talk about debt service here shortly. Public safety was our largest expenditure by function, followed closely by general government, which includes public works, administration, et cetera, community service, which includes Parks and Rec, Main Convention Center, and then the smallest swath to development services. And I say that jokingly to James Cowie, the director, because development services is doing its own lifting and will end up contributing to the general fund at some point. And then, finally, projects and initiatives. So these are the ongoing projects that we have. They're currently on the books. They were in the budget books. We continue. The Simsboro water should be online this month. Completion of wastewater treatment plant. We just got legal notice on some of the things we were waiting for. So some of our larger projects will hopefully begin completion, and we can begin moving on to others. And then, again, community initiatives, we focused on financial transparency. You approved the OpenGov module, which will allow residents to see every single expenditure. I'm not sure if we're going to get to the point where they can see the canceled check or the EFT, but you will be able to see every expenditure, and the residents themselves will be able to drill down and filter. Again, our comprehensive plan, our Parks and Rec master plans, our Sit with Sylvia's, our development code rodeos, and our sculptures all are part and parcel of what makes Bastrop, Bastrop. Any questions?
Councilperson Meyer.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was done. Street maintenance program. This was a big thing in 2024, and I know that font is really hard to read, but John and his crew really took off running. From the crack seals that were necessary to the HA5 treatments to working with water, wastewater to make sure that the section of water that's going to be done this year is done. They just did an absolute bang-up job, besides all the events that we did. So quick statistics, more than 2,300 IT tickets were handled internally. Councilmember Fossler understands what that's like. Again, you heard Kathy tell you about the Mardi Gras reach, and at the time that this was printed, it was 233,000, and I know it's up to 240. Bastrop Fire Department responded to 1,387 fire-related calls and 177 medical calls, and that's a 23% increase over 2023. So our downtown received a People's Choice Award for Found Fine Art. So thank the residents. It was a massive Facebook showing for voting. So yay, Found Fine Art. Jamie and Clint do a bang-up job there. And then those are our future goals. Those are top 10. There's probably a list of 50 we're going to try to get accomplished this year. Okay, now I'm done.
Councilperson Meyer.
Thank you. And actually, Sylvia, you just answered my question because I was going to mention North Water Street, but you said that's on there. So everybody on Water Street, it's going to get repaired. Don't worry, it's coming.
And in our street program, so Bastrop County, our partnership with Bastrop County, Butch, our newest commissioner, is renting a piece of equipment, and we're going to go 50-50 with labor, equipment, and the materials. And so we will end up doing some segments in town proper. Buttonwood from Wilson to Pecan, for example, which is in really bad shape. Some sections of Linden will have some work done in advance of a complete reconstruction. So it's all in making sure that we're stretching our resources because the residents are already double taxed between the city and the county.
Thank you, Madam City Manager.
No other way?
We're now going to move on to citizens' comments, item 5. I have 2 individuals signed up for citizens' comments and then a number signed up for agenda items. We'll start with Doc Jackson. State your name and your address in 3 minutes.
Doc Jackson, 163 Tahitian Drive. And good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council and City Manager and City staff. On behalf of the Bastrop County Martin Luther King's Holiday Commission, I just wanted to come and thank you all for making our 36th annual celebration a big success. So many people were impressed with it. They said they thought it was probably the best that we've done in the 36 years that we've done it. And of course, it was in Bastrop, and we were real pleased over that. The convention center really worked well with us. Although we didn't get a chance to do the walk, we did do the event inside. Had 6 outstanding students from the 6 Bastrop County high schools that made presentations, and hopefully we will get funding to give them scholarships. And we are also hoping that we'll be able to continue to do this for several more years. And just wanted to thank you all because you really came through in so many ways. And just special thanks to the convention center, to Kathy and her crew and everything, and to all of you for being there and being so supportive, and to the city manager also for all of her support and understanding of what we were trying to accomplish. And although the weather was not the best, we still had a good time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Pablo Serna. Name, address, and
Pablo Serna, 1104 Hill Street. Just wanted to talk about density. I commend you all on working on the B3 code and updating that, and I would like to see one other aspect in that amendment process, and it has to do with density. And I define density. Density can be defined as the number of dwelling units in an acre. And so you can look at on a satellite image a block, a developed block, say a farm lot here in the downtown Bastrop area, and you can see the density and the number of lots in that block, the number of dwelling units. You can also take the same snapshot in different parts of town and it's going to change. And so I kind of thought about it in about, in numbers, in terms of numbers, you can see where the more rural neighborhoods, like say the Lost Pines neighborhood behind Buc-ee's, they're at about 2 dwelling units per acre. Traditional neighborhoods, like such as those in the older parts of town around here, are about 4 to 5 dwelling units per acre. So then you have more recent developments like Riverside Grove and maybe Hunter's Crossing are around 7 to 8. And then newer subdivisions, which are much tighter. These are all single-family lots, by the way. Newer subdivisions can be as high as 9 to 10. And so the way it is right now in our code, and I know we're trying to fix it, and I think we need to think about incorporating a dwelling unit per acre. So I would ask that you direct the city staff, P&Z, and the consultant, Half Associates, to kind of look at that in that regard. And I just wanted to kind of give a little quick take on how that could look if you have, I'm going to give you an example of an infill development. Say somebody has a lot, and we'll use a density for easy math purposes of 6. And so they have a half acre. So that's 0.5 of an acre times 6, that yields 3. So that lot could build 3 dwelling units on that. And that's, right now, the problems we have with the way it's written, even with the amendments that we're proposing tonight, we have administrative approval for subdivisions of lots less than 5, so you can go administratively straight to staff and get 4 lots. We do not have any minimum lot sizes. We have no density unit per acre. We also allow up to 2 ADUs per lot and no maximum ADU sizes. So there's some things there that I think need to be addressed, and hopefully y'all can get that done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cerna.
Mayor Pro Tem, I would encourage Mr. Cerna to make an appointment with staff because we are taking his considerations to heart.
We're now going to move on to item 6, work sessions and briefings. 6A, discussion regarding the process for engaging legal counsel from the interim city attorney, Denton, Navarro, Rodriguez, Bernal, Santi, and Zek.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. You should have received earlier this afternoon a memo regarding what is a proposed policy adoption, and I'm not seeking for council to take any action other than give the staff direction. So these are budget versus actual legal expenses. And so the folks at home understand the legal department does not, or the legal staff does not report to the city manager. They report directly to the city council. And so the invoices are submitted, and they are submitted to the mayor with a copy to the CFO and a copy to me. But by that point, those expenses are 30 days plus in arrear, sometimes even more because the billings aren't necessarily a monthly billing. We are not in a position to question anything that's on the bill. Did they spend 15 minutes on it? Did they have a conversation with Councilmember Meyer? Did they do any of those things? And so my attempt is truly to rein a few things in. What we found as we reviewed some of the items is many times council is asking the same question of legal staff, and implementing a policy that says, per se, if one council member has a question with legal counsel, then that answer should be shared with the rest of the council within a 24-hour period, let's say, or pick a number. And the other recommendation is that each of the council be provided a limit on legal fees, and you can assign a PIN number. I don't really care how you do it. And, that is really to, one, keep legal at a minimum when there's other avenues for responses or support, be that staff, be that TML, be that somebody else. And really, if you're asking the question, your other council members probably have that same question too. And so that's been a topic of discussion we've batted around for about 6 months or so. But it's finally made its way here to the dais. Things have slowed down a little bit. And so that is what is in the policy recommendation that was in your email.
So you're looking for discussion from us in terms of things to put into such a policy?
Yes.
Is that correct? Yes. Councilperson Plunkett?
I guess I would ask the city attorney, are policies like this relatively common? Can you give me an idea of, I'm sure we can make it whatever we want it to make it, but do you have a feeling on best practices or anything that you might want to share with us?
Stan Springerly, Assistant City Attorney with Denton Navarro. So practices do vary based on the needs of each client, and this is really an in-house administrative discussion. We will accommodate whatever works best for the client. And it makes good sense to have, some structure and think about how do we reduce duplication so we're not duplicating the same answer to various members. It kind of streamlines it and makes it better for the client.
Councilperson Meyer?
Thank you. And Sylvia, thank you for this, because I know that we've talked about it for a few months, and council was concerned about it. And having policy is extremely important to stay within a budget and be fiscally responsible with the taxpayers' money. And I think it's imperative that the line that each council member should have a limit, an annual limit. It only makes sense. It's not an open check for everybody. It's the people's money. So we need to be responsible with it. So I appreciate policy and structure of that.
Councilperson Lee?
Thank you. So I didn't realize you had sent an email. We got it at 5:30. What are you actually wanting us to do? Because I would like an opportunity to read whatever you sent us. And then also, is there a way to get a breakdown of this cost for review to help us formulate the policy?
It's in the backup that I sent, and I did get the information late this afternoon. So
Yeah.
you have a complete breakdown of a 5-year history. Not just by total, but by department of the legal fees. And you guys are lumped into the general fund, which is why I isolated the general fund out of here. But the billings aren't super detailed like, well, I shouldn't say that. Some of the billings say 15 minutes to Councilmember Lee, 30 minutes to Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland regarding blank. Some of the billings don't say that. And so, number one, consistency in how we expect our bills to be received would be very, very helpful. And then, two, if you take a look at the detail and you have any questions to that, the only thing I'm looking for tonight is we've been batting this around. Here it is, make some comments, make some suggestions, and we will bring it back in a formal, how it's supposed to look with an amendment.
I do agree with Councilperson Lee that we got it late shortly before this meeting, and I did skim through it, but not enough to do any meaningful thought about it. Should we just bring this back then?
Sure. You can have an opportunity to digest it and then make any recommendations. And I would suggest you send those recommendations to myself and the city secretary. Mm-hmm. Don't copy all. We can begin to formulate some sort of policy, and we'll draft a memo that we'll send out through legal counsel for review for the next meeting or so.
Okay, that works. Moving on to item 6B, discussion and possible action regarding the process for city council members to request training opportunities.
So similar discussion. What we learned was council members are scheduling through the city secretary. It's just a policy that has happened. The city secretary doesn't work for the council. The city secretary works for the city manager. And one of the things we have to do is balance the budget. And so when I reviewed what the council budget is as it relates to training and travel, you can see that we've been over budget pretty much every year in the last 3 years. The budget had been 15,000 or 15,500, and some of those actual expenses are 20,000, 24,000, and 16,000. So in order to get a handle on the budget, I would like the council to make a determination of what those travel and training opportunities are going to be. And if there's something that falls outside of that, like council members' participation in, said group, then for the council to decide how that's going to be allocated. Some of you participate more than others. I think Councilmember Meyer, you have the least expense, and yours are local. Councilmember Fossler, you might be right in the middle. Councilmember Lee, you're at the higher end. So what I would really like is you guys work amongst each other. This is the budget. Which are important to you? I outlined, for example, the TML annual, which is probably the most expensive one that we attend. The Small Cities Conference, which is super critical because you're dealing with cities our size. The Economic Development one, which is typically held here at Hyatt Lost Pines. And then there's obviously the new council orientation one that's important. Through that, there's a bunch of webinars, there's other things that you could potentially attend that don't require perhaps travel and hotel and per diem and transportation reimbursement. But I would really like the council to determine which one of those many of TML you're going to attend, and or give each one of you an allocation for travel, and you decide what that's going to be so long as it has a city benefit.
Councilperson Meyer, go ahead.
Again, I appreciate this because we did ask for this, and I think it's so critical just to, because we're under budget, and we're under a budget, and it's public funds that we use. Therefore, I think it's a great idea to have a system, however we decide we're going to choose that. Certainly not to say that we all can't have additional training. It would just be at our own cost. It wouldn't be on the public's dollar. So I totally encourage a lot of training, but I just feel that should also be probably out of our pockets and not everybody else paying for all of it. So if we can determine what the limits would be or how we want to choose that, I think it's a great idea. It also encourages transparency, which is what we're all about.
Councilperson Lee.
Thank you. Kind of the same thing. I didn't even realize we had gotten an email on this. It came in at 5. So same question. I haven't had a chance to look at the email. Is the breakdown on this is total cost, not just trainings, total expenses. This is just training. So is there a breakdown in the document that you sent us for that as well?
There's a council budget breakdown that shows everything from materials, training, the entire budget, and how much was spent.
What's the 15,000 is what's actually budgeted for training?
Yes, training.
That is it. So
Yes.
again, can we
Sure.
get a chance to read
All I'm
over that?
looking for today is really, you have a decision to make. Do you want to allocate dollars per council member and let the council decide which they would want to attend? For example, the TML annual conference is the most expensive conference. We have to schedule early. It's typically at a very pricey hotel that the TML board likes to stay at, and so we're kind of all having to stay there. But you may not want to go to the TML conference, and you could use your $2,000, because that's typically what we spend on that TML conference. You may want to use your $2,000 differently. So I think from the most equitable, that would give you the choice of a wide variety of training, that we take that budget and we allocate it evenly among the council, and you decide which training you want to attend. As long as it's a TML or a TML affiliate, I mean, it's going to benefit the city, so.
May I? One more question?
No, please, yeah.
My understanding is there was a budget for council prior to me ever being on council. Do we know what that amount was back then? That is, no, per council member. There was a budget per council member that was already established before I even thought about running for council. Do we know?
No, it's never been a per council. It's a lump sum. And the thing about the council budget item is you have training and travel as a line item, and then there is an array of invitations that y'all receive from the food pantry, et cetera, et cetera. Those are also paid out of that fund. It's never really been a per council. It's just been these are the normal ones, everybody attends, and so we end up scheduling that. That's what I inherited, and some of you use it, others don't. So, my preference would be that you guys have an equitable split, and if you aren't going to use yours and there's still money left over and she needs some, then you guys are able to work it out.
How does the other events factor into this? Seats to the chamber luncheon, seats to the Mardi Gras ball. Where is that cost? Because I think we have to look at it as a total picture, not just training, because that increases the cost when you're buying tickets for this and tickets for that. And we just hosted a thing at the EDC at Piney Creek, our workshop or whatever. How much did we pay for that? I'd like to see a breakdown of all of that, because I think that if we're going to, restrict or look at the budget, then we need to look at the budget as a whole regarding what the city is using funds to pay for council members.
There are some events that are scheduled out of the city manager's budget. There's some events that are scheduled out of the council's budget. There's some events that pop up through the year, and we just kind of try to find it somewhere. If you haven't used your supplies and materials item, we'll move it out of that into a line item. And it's all to keep the bottom line whole. But in your packet was backup. If you need more backup to that, we're happy to provide that.
Councilperson Plunkett.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought a little bit, but yeah, I mean, I totally agree that the total cost, maybe one council member spends more money on training and another one spends more money on, I don't know, going to events or something. But it would be good to have that visibility for each of us. And I assume that would be fairly easy to track. I don't want to do a whole heck of a lot of extra work on y'all's end either. So.
No, what I will say from an events perspective is sometimes you guys RSVP for 1 or 2 plus and you don't show up.
Councilperson Foster.
For the TML trainings specifically, I've found them very helpful, especially in year one, like always keep the new member training. But I think it would be restrictive to choose which courses for the year in advance, because I don't know if their schedule is out for the full year. It seems like they in their TML newsletter, we get them quarterly. So I wouldn't want to have to choose actually which courses. I wouldn't want it to be that restrictive. So just so long as we're aware of our amount allocated to us, and then we can do some heavy negotiatings with each other as we get to the end of the year, and some people haven't used them. Like, that'll be fun. We'll do that.
I think that would be beneficial for council relations, period, because if you didn't travel and you went to webinars because that's what your work required, and that would be a good way to buddy up to your council members and say, can I borrow some of your travel funds?
And force us to carpool. That'd be good.
Yes.
It's good for the environment. Yes.
Councilperson Meyer.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I thought of one more thing, too. Since we're talking about there's so many different trainings, and maybe some of us like to do certain ones and other ones, it would really be a great idea for us as a council if maybe only Mayor Pro Tem goes to one, to share that information with us. So we could have the information, all the good information. Maybe we didn't attend, maybe we didn't use our dollars, but we could benefit from the information if we all shared what we actually learned. So just to encourage that to be in there too.
So then, council, on this item, there was an email with a lot of backup data. Read that, consume that, send your thoughts to the city manager as well for future policy discussion. We're going to move on to item 7A, receive a presentation of the unaudited financial monthly reports for October 24.
Mayor Pro Tem, and I am in receipt of your email about the remaining financial reports that are behind, and so we will endeavor to have those for the next council meeting.
Thank you.
Yes, we will. Here are the October financial statements. We are in a positive, we are in a positive, we are not in any negative variances of our funds currently. Or any of our major funds. You'll see here that we do have our impact fee fund. Of course, our impact fees will start rolling in. We are actually talking tonight about one of our developments, but we have many developments that are coming online this year or anticipated. And then Hunter's Crossing PID, that's property tax that also we receive in the bulk of that in December and June. December and January. And then all of our expenses are below forecast in October. We are above forecast in sales tax revenue for October, about 6.6% above what we anticipated. We are below property tax, but it was a small number, and we anticipate, and the bulk of our property tax comes in December and January. So all of our general fund expenditures by department are within a reasonable range. Legislative is over. That has to do with all of the TML expenditures were hit in October. And then human resources was over due to a lot of the employee appreciation items being purchased in October. And then some of the other ones were just smaller amounts that were the allocation just hit in October or did not hit in October. Our water waste revenue is in a positive trend compared to forecast. So we had a really good month in October. Our water and wastewater expenditures, they were, 3 of our categories were over forecasted. Again, administration, it was just some smaller amounts that added up that were spent in October that added up to be just a little bit over. Distribution and collection was under. We had 2 new positions added, and those had not been filled at that point, so salaries is the bulk of that number. Salaries and everything that's related to that. Production treatment, that was an annual service, due to an annual service agreement that was paid in October to Turbidity. And then wastewater treatment plant, there were a lot of lab fees and equipment software maintenance that were some annual fees that were paid in October. The electric fund is trending positive compared to forecasts for October also, as well as the hotel occupancy tax revenue. We are within 1%, but it was positive. And then our expenses are significantly below. October expenses are so high for organizational because we did transfer the debt. We went ahead and transferred the debt service over to the general fund in October. Our development services revenue is trending positive. Our inspections are bringing in some money, and as Sylvia said, we eventually will start transferring money to the general fund. And then our expenditures are about 20-ish% below forecast for development services.
Councilperson Lee.
Thank you. So I have a question about the impact fees. Because I compared this time last year, what that number was, and it was like -24. I thought I screenshotted it, but I guess I lost it. And we're consistently, I know we talk about this all the time, but 80% negative is concerning. So have we gotten a breakdown of why is that negative 80% that I can find in an email somewhere, or can we get that? Because it's just, we're going to be at 100% next month. Okay, cool. Nothing else then.
Thank you. Let's move on to item 7B, receive presentation of the strategic budget planning calendar for FY 25-26.
I know that this is small, but we are starting our process as it is a very intensive process. Of course, for preparation, we start with all of the council elections and et cetera. January 15th as the filing period begins, and February 14th is the last council meeting before the deadline to call the general election. February 25th is city council or candidate orientation, and March 3rd we will have the staff planning session for the budget kickoff. May 1st, we will receive preliminary notices of appraised values from the chief appraiser, and we don't get the final until July 25th. That will be the final numbers. May 1st, we receive preliminary notices May 3rd is election day. May 13th, we'll canvass the results for the election, and then May 14th, we'll have a special city council pre-budget planning session, and we'll have one also on the 15th for several different focus areas. May 15th is, it'll be extra long on May 15th because we are I combined 2 days to try, because I think that you can probably get through all of it those days. This city manager, the CFO, and the directors will meet mid-June, 9th through the 13th, to discuss their budget submittals. And I had the Hunters Crossing local government as June 19th, not realizing that was Juneteenth. I was looking at the little calendar on the computer, and it didn't have holidays on it. So I will probably propose that is June 26th, which is the next Thursday. That is, if you'll see further down the list, that will be approved later in August, so that should probably be sufficient to get that information in time. June 20th will be the deadline for community support and non-special event hot organization applications for funding. July 8th, the community support organizations will be presenting their requests to council. July 23rd, we'll publish the notice of special assessments. The notice has to be done 15 days prior to the public hearing. And then July 25th, of course, is the deadline for the chief appraiser. I had another joint council meeting with Visit Bastrop on June 19th. The two other options are June 17th or 18th. That's Tuesday or Wednesday. July 28th, city manager will present the budget, and then also the meeting of the governing body to discuss the proposed tax rate. So that's just where we talk about it, and it's not where we make the decision. August 12th, the public hearing special assessment for Hunters Crossing PID. That will be the June 26th meeting. They will make their recommendation. August 12th, you will have the public hearing. August 14th and 15th, I have scheduled for budget workshops. And then August 26th, the council meeting to adopt financial purchasing policies and the second reading of the amended and restated service and assessment plan for the Hunters Crossing. August 27th is the published notice of the budget hearing. We have to publish 10 days prior to the hearing, and the tax rate hearing must be posted 5 days prior to the public hearing. September 9th is the council meeting for the public hearing on the first reading of the tax rate ordinance. the budget and the first reading of the budget, and then a week later is this, we'll have a council meeting for the second reading of the budget. And then October 1st, the fiscal year begins.
Councilperson Meyer, do you have a question?
Yeah, Edie, can you scroll back up to the top? Because we have the city council filing begins and ends, but we don't have the mayoral on there because I know the filing, the end date is different than the city council.
Okay, I will have to check on that. I do not know the answer,
Okay.
but I will.
Yeah, I just think if we can add it in there so we can.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
I'm going to take a small diversion to our city manager to make a public safety announcement.
Okay. So we have received a notice that there is a dam failure at the Longhorn Dam, and Lady Bird Lake is dropping as of 2 o'clock. It had gone down a foot and it continues dropping. Austin's water department and their emergency operations have been activated, and they've taken some precaution and closed some streets. What does that mean for us? If you have, there's a bunch of social media posts, and the most recent was if you have cattle in the river bottom, you really need to get it out. And if you are on the Colorado River below Austin, get off of it now. Those are the social media. These are folks that float the river, know the river very well, and so I would encourage folks to stay off of it until Austin makes a determination on a repair, et cetera. Last we need is some major drownings. At this point, we're not in danger of a flood, but we are monitoring the situation very closely. What is concerning is the rain event that is coming along with this dam. And then additionally, and I'm sorry we missed these announcements earlier. The comprehensive open house is on Thursday at 6 o'clock at the library. And then we do have code amendments that are going to be affecting P2 and P3. And we have 4 public meetings. The first one begins February 17th. That's planning and zoning, and then February 24th. The week after, also planning and zoning, and then the week of 3-4, that's the city council meeting, and then the following week, the normal city council meeting, and we will be discussing all of those. I'm sorry, the open house is tomorrow, not Thursday. I don't know what day it is. Because it conflicts with my sit with Sylvia, so I know it's tomorrow. So. And then the radio tower for emergency management. This has also been a hot topic on social media. Where's the tower going? Who allowed it? Is it a cell phone tower? It is an emergency operations tower. It's a partnership. The city approved the county to be exempt from plating to allow that tower to go up. So we're not under attack by anybody. That's our stuff going up. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Item 7C, discuss and provide possible direction to staff regarding the debt service fund. Madam City Manager.
So, Councilman, some of this may answer your impact fee question, but we are going to have a major discussion in executive session. So, as part of the, I think you skipped, did you go straight to debt service? Okay. As part of the financial transparency and the budget preparation, I thought it was important for the council to be aware of some departments, especially the ones that you've been asking for. Parks and Recreation is a constant. When are we getting a rec center? What are we doing? What are we doing? Why is it so expensive, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to go through Parks and Rec tonight. We're also going to go through the debt service fund for both the general fund and water wastewater. These are super, super, super critical. They are in your email. It was received late. You do have specific details on each of the balance issuance or each of the debt issuance and then the PowerPoint itself that you can follow along with. So, yes, can you bring up the Prezi? Debt service, water, wastewater debt. Oh, general fund debt, sorry, either one. So general fund debt, this is portion that is funded, the tax rate contains two parts. It contains a maintenance and operations part, and it contains what we call an interest and sinking. You'll often refer to it as an M&O and an INS. That's not INS as in an I-9 number, that's interest and sinking fund. So our entire debt fund overview. So the general fund has maintained a special debt fund to pay any debt issuance, and it's avoided taking money from the operational fund or any other influx of fund in order to pay our debt. That's required by law. We must have an interest and sinking fund if we have debt as part of our tax rate. This is where the scary part comes in. Historical overview over the last 5 years. And this is, again, just general fund debt portion. So that you can see that in 2020, our total debt payment in principal and interest was about $2.4 million. In 2025, that number goes up to $2.8 million. We've been able to maintain a interest and sinking fund, that portion of the tax rate. We've been able to maintain that steadily, and that really is a function of increased valuations. It's not because we were magic in what we did with our rates. Yes, it is. We've kept our operations efficient. But if we were to see a lull in property values, for example, we would begin to have some concern. We are required to have a surplus fund, a fund that in case we have an issue that we're able to make some of our debt payments and pay some of the bills for a period of months. It's important that we keep those funds healthy and we don't draw down one-time expenses, which has been the city's practice over the past couple of years. We see these windfalls and we do spend-as-you-go one-time expenses. So debt issuance, I know the numbers are small. Hopefully I'll be able to scroll into that. The debt issuance per year ranges from 2018 all the way through 2023. The latest issuance of $13 million in 2023 was a portion of the Old Iron Bridge, Riverbank Stabilization, Grant Match, Gills Branch Grant Match, the Street HA5, the Street Rehabilitation Program, and Agnes Street extension for a total of $11 million. We move on to the second portion of the debts, and we go through some more historical, all the way back to 2005, where there was a $2.4 million issuance that was supposed to take care of some of Mayfest Park, but there was a $160,000 allocation there that was canceled, and that was put back towards streets. It did streets like Hill, North Pecan, Maynard, Spring, Alley D, and Hill and Hawthorne. In General Fund Series 2006, there were a couple of streets that we've not been able to make out, or at least I've not been able to make out, other than Mahalo in Tahitian. That was a $345,000 borrow. And then in 2006, also, we borrowed $220,000 to purchase city vehicles for various departments. That's probably not the most efficient use of bond dollars. We've moved to a repair and replacement policy where every department contributes a portion so that we continue to maintain our vehicles and we're not having to borrow our way through. That is never a good policy to work through. In 2007, we do South Pecan, Perkins, we do City Hall rehabilitation, and in 2007 we do a library expansion. In 2013 we do some construction, extending some city streets of a $7.3 million borrow, and then in 2014 we do construction improvements to the city's electrical equipment and vehicles for $1 million. The latter portion of this is refundings of bonds that have occurred, and those occurred to save the city some money if interest rates dropped. It saved a portion of that debt payment over a period of time. So we can go through each of these. These are series 2005. That's what we borrowed for that particular series. Each one of these slides gives particular detail of each of the projects that were funded. Some of these projects are ready again. Especially the street projects. And at the end of this slide, for example, there's $220,000 for purchasing city vehicles. That's painful. City Hall renovations. A library expansion. 2013, again, streets in the downtown area. 2014, $1 million for BP&L. 2018, again, attention to downtown and the Old Iron Bridge. We do a tax note for some building maintenance and remodel upgrades that were needed in 2020. In 2022, again, Old Austin Highway, that project was completed. And then there's, again, some additional dollars for Linden Farm and Water. And you'll see that throughout the issuance. Some of the bond issuance are very detailed. And I'm going to chide our bond counsel, who is sitting in the audience right now, that in the future, I would like our bond payments to be detailed. We need to understand what we borrowed money for. That is the only way you hold staff accountable and that those projects are done. I don't want to end up in a position where it said street rehab, and council had an idea, and the residents had an idea of what that street rehab was going to be. You get new administration and new staff, and it says street rehab, we're going to spend it on street rehab. So I really want us to be cognizant of what we're borrowing for and ensuring that those projects get done in a timely manner. The money becomes I don't want to say worthless, but it becomes less value when you're paying interest on something that you're sitting in the bank with because you're not ready for the project. You have less money to be able to do the work, unless interest rates are very high, in which case you might have some arbitrage, you might be making some money, but that's not normally the case. The 23 bond series, again, we borrowed to finish projects that were already on the books. This is, again, if we're going to borrow in phases, it's important for the council to understand what those phases are and when we're going to get ourselves out of it. Decisions that we make last year and the year before have a long-term implication on the tax rate. We have some borrows in the Water and Wastewater Fund where the first payment was put off for several years, and that was to allow impact fees to catch up. But if impact fees are in the negative, we're forced to catch it up on the rate. And our existing ratepayers, that's not fair. So be very cognizant of what we borrow, understand what we're supposed to borrow and why we're supposed to borrow, and make sure that we stay absolutely on top of it. So that's a general fund debt. I hate to leave a womp womp, but we're going to go into water wastewater debt.
You sent us this presentation?
Yes, as well as the actual backup, a PDF of per borrow, per tranche, so a detail of each.
I think the thing that would be also interesting is, not sure what to call it, but like an amortization schedule, but more specifically, at what point in time, say, 2 years, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, do we pay off some of that prior debt so that the city could choose to take on additional debt at that point to take on a new, bigger project. So I would say that level of detail is not contained within the information.
An amortization schedule per issuance?
Well, that's, you could get there from that, I would think. You could, kind of sum them all up, but really what I'm looking for is the total amount of the city's debt in a forward-looking basis. So this type of a roll-up, but project it forward, assuming we took out no new debt, so that we could see, 2 years from now, there is enough room for us to take out, $10 million in debt to do something at that time.
Yeah, I think we used to do that with the EDC fund.
Mm-hmm.
I think we used to see it that way.
She has a schedule. Those are long schedules to read. I didn't think the council would be interested.
Well, and it's not so much the detail that I'm interested in. I'm interested in this, but projected into the future. And if I have to start with detailed data to create it, I can, but this is more what I'm looking for, but with some additional years added to the right that we haven't gotten to yet.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is just a 5-year, and some of these debt payments in the water wastewater fund specifically are because of that, are because we borrowed, but we pushed off that first payment in anticipation of revenues. And I'll look at bond counsel who's sitting in the audience right now. And that is, and I'll just say, that is not an abnormal, or that's not an uncommon thing the cities do, especially when you have revenue anticipation of, let's say, 2,000 new homes coming on. We're anticipating that we are going to have impact fees. We're anticipating we're going to have repeating revenue in the form of a utility billing. So we start with 2006. That was some construction, some improvement, 480,000. 2007, we're getting closer to the 2 million. We did some refundings of 14, 16, 20, and 21 to give us some savings. And then we moved to 2014. We're purchasing vacuum trucks. We're doing some rehabs of the water system, wastewater treatment plant phase 1. That planning begins. And in 2014, we're in a $7 million range. In 2019, we've got some real property acquisition. We're again going into wastewater treatment plant number 3, planning our wayside collection lines, and that's a $1.9 million borrow. In 2020, we have probably the largest borrow that the city had seen, and that is wastewater treatment plant number 3, a lift station and force main project, and some acquisitions at the excess ranch for the water. And that was a $21 million borrow. We moved to 2021. That was a $36 million borrow, with $20 million of that going to wastewater treatment plant number 3, and $11.5 million of that going to the excess ranch water supply, for a total of $35.7 million. In 2023, those projects are well underway. We need to borrow to finish those projects. That's a $27 million borrow. And then most recently, what you approved was completion of the excess. You approved a $37.9 million borrow, and that was completion of the water. It was the payment of a portion of the CCN payment to Valverde, to Aqua, and then also a portion of the Pearl River payment for Aqua, $3.2 million for Aqua and $800,000 for Pearl River, and those are CCN acquisitions. And this will be a topic of executive session, but this is exactly, those large transfer payments are what happens when utility providers don't communicate well. Public Utility Commission could have intervened during any one of those development processes if one of the providers could not serve. So, revenue expectations. I'm glad bond counsel's in the audience. We have plenty of revenue to cover, but the larger debt tranches that we take on, we have to be really cognizant of what that means to the average resident and what that means to our base utility rate.
So real quick, can you go back one slide? So the rehab of our old treatment plant, what monies are we using for that?
We are actually using ARPA funds.
That's right, ARPA.
And the transfer, the lift station force main project was not completely completed, so there's going to be some dollar value on that. I don't know how much that is at this exact moment in time. Partnerships, super, super, super important. Partnering with each of the providers on where they can and can't serve. If the provider has an asset, for example, we're having to pay some of this quote-unquote stranded asset costs to Aqua for encroaching into their territory. If the provider has the ability, but they maybe perhaps need an easement from us, maybe we can get there through a wholesale agreement, it's really important that we play nice in the sandbox. Utilities are one of those things that are profitable. Nobody's trying to go serve parks. Parks don't make any money, but utilities make money. And so those CCN territories are very valuable. Our partnerships with WCID and Bastrop County has yielded wonderful, wonderful results in water and streets, and I want to continue to expand that with Corex and Aqua. So some of these are, they're in your packet. I know that we're running long, so I'm gonna go in terms of, what have we spent? How much are they? I'm hopeful that we're near the end of the wastewater treatment plant number 3. We did get information from our legal team that hopefully gets us to at least the horizon where we can actually cut a ribbon and hopefully staff can move in. The project is long overdue, over budget. I'm, pretty much over it. We're all ready to see it come to an end. '21 actual expenditures, again, mostly in the wastewater and the wastewater side. And then our project funds. I've touched on all of these. These are just a little bit more detail. The water acquisition and the wastewater treatment plant have been by far, and the right-of-way acquisition have been by far the most expensive. And I think even underestimated on our part how much that actually was. And then the last one I'm going to touch on is Parks and Recreation.
Before you move
yes.
on, I have a similar request, which is to see it aggregated into a chart and then projected forward into the future. The intention here is also to look for the timing and opportunities to be able to continue to expand the wastewater system. And at what point in time does it look like we can afford to do that based upon, the debt levels and or the development that's coming in and so on. But
that's why the type of plant that you reviewed the other day is important. Mm-hmm. That type of plant monetizes, meaning it actually makes some money off of the byproducts, mm-hmm. whether that is the sale of the effluent, whether that is purple pipe that we are now sending off to irrigation systems and aren't using valuable potable water. That is a monetized plant. The plant that we have today is not monetized. It costs us money to operate that plant, both from an electricity, chemical, all of the other possibilities. So staff is working to schedule a field trip for the new type of plant to talk to the actual operators, the cities, how are the plants operating, and then we will bring that information back to council.
Thank you.
And the partnership agreement with CoreX. Can you bring up Parks and Rec, please? And the reason I picked Parks and Recreation is because we did break out the parks maintenance from the recreation, and so some of those budget numbers are skewed, and when you see some of those percentages, like 1,600% increase, it's because we started at like $397 in some of those line items. So I want to let the public know, yes, we hear you. Yes, we're paying attention to Parks and Recreation. We're not ignoring you, but at the same time to the naysayers that we are not spending thousands and thousands of dollars into something that is not going to have a return. So again, just going over the changes over the last 5 years that we have separated park maintenance and recreation. We are trying to grow the recreation. We now have a roadmap for the future in the master plan. And so along with that is also a longer term maintenance plan, identifying what we have, what's broken, getting some standardization of all of our park equipment so that Terry doesn't have to replace 5 different types of slides with 5 different types of screws with 5 different types of specialty equipment on how to do those things. Upkeep and improvements. And so there are some squirrely things in the finances that you're going to see, especially as it relates to mowing. This is probably one of the hardest funds I've ever had to try to sort through. And earlier today, I really just threw up my hands and said, forget it, I give up. Luckily, Terry came into the office and could make some sense of it because it was mixed up in Parks and Rec, it was mixed up in third-party contracts, it was mixed up in community engagement. I mean, it was pieced and parceled everywhere. And so that's not very transparent for the residents to understand how much you're actually spending. Governments love to hide the coconuts. We love to hide and understand where the money is coming from, but it gets very hard for me to do analysis and do an apples-to-apples comparison if you don't really know where it's coming from. So here's the Park and Rec budget. You'll see that mowing down at the bottom We go across, and then in 2025, you don't see anything. Well, it's because it's buried up as a portion of it in the maintenance line item. A portion of the mowing went to streets and drainage, and so, again, it's been parceled out. You will see some numbers in the personnel line item that don't really look like personnel has been increased. Well, some of those used to be allocated to community engagement, and, you know, Terry will tell you that I don't know how to make sense of some of it, the prior budgeting. What I do know is today and from this day forward, we have a recreation budget and we have a parks budget, and those people are assigned to those billing codes. Here's that personnel count. And it appears that we haven't had a large increase. We do have a supplement of the mowing contract, and that does free up some of the maintenance. I would be remiss if I said it was enough to keep up. None of the city departments are really at a point where anybody has the luxury to sit back. Expenses, although staff has remained stable, expenses continue to rise. That is the cost of benefits, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, we have about a 30 to 32% overhead. So for every dollar of an hourly wage rate I pay, there's $1.32. There's 32% or 32 cents above that I have to pay to cover some of the other. Again, some of the super large increases that look like they're increases in supplies and materials, and that's really because we weren't, number one, it was, again, aggregated in different areas, but two, not really doing a whole lot of separation between public works and parks. There was a lot of sharing of things, and, you know, the result is sometimes our parks didn't get the attention they needed because it's important that the water and the wastewater, it's important that you can turn on clean water, and it's important that you can flush the toilet. So that's why sometimes parks was ignored. You see maintenance and repairs. The council did do some one-time expenses for the Mayfest Park, and you did recently do one-time expenses for the playscape at Bob Bryant. So some of those numbers look astronomical. We're not doing anything out of the ordinary. They were, again, one-time expenses out of the budget. This is that squirrely contractual services. It includes mowing and other. We have contractual services on how to do everything from repairing the splash pad to equipment, et cetera, et cetera. Capital outlay, again, this was one that was a little bit squirrely to try to untangle because some of it was embedded in public works, some of it was embedded in one-time expenses. And we went round and round trying to identify where the covers for the two parks that are mentioned there came from. We had to go get Curtis Hancock and say, okay, tell me who the vendor was, and then go do a search in the financial system. So, you know, we're untangling the spaghetti noodle. And the important thing is we're able to continue to balance the budget and still continue to make improvements. Total recreational expenses, again, that chart looks like it's skewed, but it's because the expenses were so low in some of the prior years. We're not foregoing, I heard you're foregoing police because you're adding to parks. No, we're not. Police got 2 additional police for the last couple of years. Talked about the expense rising. The numbers in 2024, there were 17,000 member check-ins. And that's only members, that's not non-members, and they're not really having a way to track folks who come to, for example, movies in the park or any of the other things. So that engagement number is greater, but this is the actual number of folks who came into the recreation center. And then she's got some future goals, the things that are embedded in the parks master plan, and formalizing tracking of all attendance that we just talked about, because if I can measure it, I can manage it. Continued implementation of the master plan, the inventory list, a plan of action for the parks board, and expanding programming in the recreation and parks. And any questions that you have, or Terry's here to answer any questions also.
Councilperson Lee.
Thank you. So the agenda item said provide possible direction to staff. What direction are you asking for or looking for?
That is if you want additional data related to maintenance and equipment, you have a particular park that you're interested in that maybe needs attention, there's something that's broken somewhere, anything that's related to park and recreation.
So when was the last time we did a survey? I know we did one for the parks plan. Have we done a survey in the community as to what they see? Because I don't go to the park every day for me to be able to tell you. Terry knows that way better than I do, and I would rather hear from her on what she thinks needs to be done with our parks. You're not asking for any more funding. Are you asking us to set priorities for the parks for this year?
No, the purpose of this was really to show you where the financials are going. There's a lot of rhetoric and noise in the community about, we're not putting enough toward Park and Rec, we're not doing this. And the reality of it is, no, we're not. But this is the first couple of years we're putting some structure to it. Actually getting a plan, actually dividing the work, actually understanding what we have, even in the queue. Before I can go try to get more, I need to understand what I have. And so that was some of the purpose of this.
So then I think it would be helpful if, I don't know, you want to do it quarterly, monthly, whatever, we get a report from parks. Yeah. Because again, I'm not in the park every day. I don't know what, other than we need a recreation center. That's another big discussion. Outside of maybe tonight, I don't know what's in the parks to be able to provide any input tonight.
And so your monthly report, that could go just as part of the weekly report once a month to include a section for Parks and Recreation?
Well, the weekly memo does already contain that, but that's not in depth, and the public doesn't see that, the weekly memo. But it's not an in-depth, it's just, saying what cleanup was done in the park, what might have been fixed. We see that in the weekly memo, the public doesn't. So if you're saying there's chatter in the public about what's actually happening with parks, the presentation will help shed some light on that.
So what kind of information would you like to see?
What are the people saying they want to know more of? Pretty much what you just presented here. And if we're spending money in the parks, what do we spend the money on? So really just bringing what's in our weekly memo that the public doesn't see to the public. But I don't know that it needs to be done every meeting, once a quarter.
Okay.
My opinion anyway.
Councilperson Plunkett.
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate, my understanding of the purpose of this exercise is ahead of budget season to give us kind of a drill down department by department. We can't do it all, the whole entire budget at one time, and we'd all glaze over anyway. So I think the idea was each meeting, let's take one department and kind of drill down a little bit so we can understand better what's going into we see the bottom line number by department, but that's it. And I think this was a good step in that direction of just helping us understand. Somebody asked me recently, how do we spend the 1.1 million? What are we doing with it? I'm like, I didn't have a great answer for them. So this will help me with that. So.
I got that question too. How do you spend 1.1 million? You only have 12 people.
Right.
What kind of salary are they making?
Thanks.
I got to pay electric bill too, y'all.
Okay, we're going to move on to our consent agenda. I have a number of comments for items that are on the consent agenda.
Point of order, Mayor Pro Tem, can I ask a question about the consent agenda process? So our consent agenda is exceeding our items for individual consideration lately, right? So I know nobody in the world but me watches old council meetings, but for some reason I stumbled upon a 2016 council meeting this week, and during that meeting on the consent, instead of reading every single one, they just did a motion to approve with the exception of the ones that were pulled. Is that something that we can do to cut down on some time? I don't know if it was against the law, but I saw it happen and I was like, whoa, why don't we do that?
It has to do with our rules of procedure.
Okay, so is it in our rules of procedure that they must be read, each one out loud?
The headings need to be read, but not the entire agenda item. On some of these that have to do with, that include amendments to ordinances, the headings need to be read.
I think there's, Charlie addressed this with me earlier, and he said that our charter requires that the heading of ordinances must be read twice, first reading and second reading, in order for that to become a law of the City of Bastrop. So we do have a specific requirement there. But generally, I'm very much in favor of doing things that will, optimize our meetings and move them along.
That is correct. An omnibus motion can cover everything, but with that caveat that you do need to have the readings on the ordinances in order to become law.
Okay. So we're going to basically do it the way we've been doing it for today, but I would like to continue to have that conversation to optimize it.
Thank you.
Okay, so I mentioned that there are a number of citizen comments, and only one of them wishes to speak. So I'm going to go through each of these items. The first collection is on item 8G. And we have a comment from Gregory LeBlanc, who says he does not wish to speak but supports this item. Sheridan Tyner does not wish to speak but supports this item. Toby Tyner supports this item, does not wish to speak. Annie Limmer does not wish to speak, supports this item. Looks like Toby Tyner got in there twice, as did Annie Limmer. And Garrett Limmer does not wish to speak but supports item 8G. And then we have a does wish to speak on item 8E from Pablo Serna.
Pablo Serna, 1104 Hill Street. I'm opposed to the way it is written because I think it's a little incomplete. And so I'm not against ADUs. I think they're a really good answer for workforce housing, small scale residential. Historically, ADUs were granny flats or, garage apartments or maybe even infill garage conversions. So they're always small scale. By not stipulating a maximum square footage, which I think should be 400 because that aligns with a tiny home, by not stipulating a maximum size, ADUs could get quite large. 400 square feet, 2 bedrooms or less is a reasonable amount. We're still covered with impervious cover, but ADUs can go above the garage. So the way it is written now, you can have 2 ADUs on a single family lot. So a primary dwelling unit and 2 ADUs would essentially be 3 families, they don't have to be related, living on a single family lot. Maybe the neighborhood would object to that. So I think what we're trying to do, and the code was to start to that, but we are trying to address affordable housing. So I think in that spirit, keeping them to a small scale, and I wrote this, but I've looked around and limiting the lot size that could actually do an ADU would be something else. So some municipalities start at 5,000 square feet or more for a lot size. So again, the 2 takeaways, hope you consider amending 8E to include 400 square feet or less, 2 bedrooms, and 5,000 square feet minimum lot size. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Serna. So because this item's on the agenda, we can discuss it briefly. Madam City Manager, are these items already on the plate for upcoming planning and zoning discussions?
The lots, what is on the plate is lot size minimums, and then also setbacks. The ADU conversation we had related to impervious cover, but it did not have anything to do with limiting ADUs per certain lot sizes, which is of great concern, especially for the the smaller lots in the area. And from a restrictive position of 400 square feet per ADU, I don't think staff has a recommendation one way or the other. But we are in total agreement that not having any kind of restriction is also difficult to manage.
Right, okay. Council, would you like to do something different with this item? Leave it on the consent agenda? What would your preference be on this?
I was going to pull it anyway for another reason.
Okay, well then let's pull that item. Well, so let's pull item 8E. And then for the remainder of the consent agenda, Madam City Secretary, will you please?
I have one to pull too, Mayor.
Oh, sorry.
I just got to figure out which one it was.
Do you have another one you want to pull?
Oh, it was G. It was the same one.
Oh, G or E?
I was going to pull G.
Okay.
And I have 8A and 8B.
A, B, E, and G. So now.
I thought I was going to save my voice tonight.
Now I have to read them.
Item 8C, consider an act on resolution number R-2025-9, accepting a donation from HEB in the amount of $2,000 and $500 for the upcoming Bastrop Mardi Gras event held in downtown Bastrop, Texas on Saturday, February 1st, 2025, providing for findings of fact, providing for repealing clause, and establishing effective date. Consider an act on resolution number R-2025-20, accepting a donation from Blue Bonnet Electric in the amount of $3,500 for the upcoming Bastrop Mardi Gras event being held in downtown Bastrop, Texas on Saturday, February 1st, 2025, providing for findings of fact, providing for repealing clause, and establishing effective date. Item 8F, consider an act on the second reading of ordinance number 2025-03 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, amending the Code of Ordinances related to Chapter 14, the Bastrop Building Block B3 Code, Article 6.3, General Lot Standards, Section 6.3.007, Cross-Access Connections, A, as attached in Exhibit A, and providing for findings of fact, repeal or severability, codification, effective date, proper notice, and meeting. Item 8H, consider an act on the second reading of ordinance number 2024-44 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, approving the zoning change for 10.56 plus minus acres of Nancy Blakey Survey Abstract 98 located west of FM 969 within the City of Bastrop from P2 Rural to P5 Core as shown in Attachment 2, providing for findings of fact, providing for repealer, providing for severability, providing for enforcement, providing for proper notice and meeting, and establishing an effective date. Item 8I, consider an act on the second reading of ordinance number 2025-05, amending the budget for the fiscal year 2025 in accordance with existing statutory requirements, appropriating the various amounts herein as attached in Exhibit A, repealing all the prior ordinances and actions in conflict herewithin, and establishing an effective date. Item 8J, consider an act to approve resolution number R-2025-24, approving the Bastrop Cultural Arts Commission to accept a grant in the amount of $15,000 from the Texas Commission on the Arts for a Cultural Arts District project, authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents and providing a repealer and establishing an effective date. Item 8K, consider an act to approve resolution number R-2025-25 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, approving the Bastrop Cultural Arts Commission to accept a grant in the amount of $8,000 from the Texas Commission on the Arts for a Cultural Arts District project, authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents and providing a repealer and establishing effective date.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
We give that one to Councilperson Meyer and Councilperson Lee for the second. Madam City Secretary?
Councilmember Meyer.
Yes.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Councilmember Plunkett.
Yes.
Councilmember Fossler.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We'll move on to item 8A. Consider an act to approve the following Bastrop City Council meeting minutes. Tuesday, December 3rd, Joint Council in Bastrop EDC. Tuesday, January 14th, regular meeting. Wednesday, January 16th, Joint Council and Planning and Zoning Commission Workshop. And Friday, January 17th, 2025, special meeting. Councilperson Fossler.
Specifically for Tuesday, January 14th minutes, on page 139, the motion, we just forgot to get the friendly amendment made to that motion, and I want the minutes to reflect the friendly amendment that we made that night. Do you want me to pull it up and show you exactly the words? It's on page 139. The very, very, very first word, additional, needs to be changed to accessory. You got it already?
It was provided an update for you.
Oh, okay. It was provided already?
It's on the we got it on when we got on the dais. There's
Sorry,
a-
I didn't even get that far.
I know.
Okay, never mind. I don't need to pull it. It's all good.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Councilperson Meyer and Councilperson Plunkett, please call the roll.
Councilmember Meyer.
Yes.
Councilmember Plunkett.
Yes.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Councilmember Fossler.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. 8B, consider and act on Resolution 2025-18 granting historic landmark status for .817 acres out of Farm Block 16 west of Main Street within the city limits of the City of Bastrop, et cetera.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So the reason that this item was pulled is there was an error in the staff report and subsequent resolution. You have received the updated copies. The error was criteria 2 was selected, which is associated with the events that are significant to Bastrop, but it should have been criteria 3 associated with the lives of persons associated with Bastrop. And so that correction you can see here on the screen, it was swapping out 2 for 3.
Thank you. Motion to approve. And I'm very excited about
Second.
that historic landmark.
Motion from Councilperson Fossler, second from Councilperson Lee. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Fossler.
Yes.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer.
Yes.
Councilmember Plunkett.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Move on to item 8E, consider an act on the second reading of ordinance 2025-04 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, amending the Code of Ordinances related to Chapter 14, the Bastrop Building Code, Building Block B3 Code, Article 6.5, Building Type, Section 6503, Building Standards per Place Type, A, Lot Occupation Table, and Section 63008, Lot Occupation A and B is attached in Exhibit A, and providing for findings of fact, repeal or severability, codification, effective date, proper notice, and meeting.
Thank you again, Mayor Pro Tem. So this was pulled for the same reason the minutes was pulled. This is the original language, and this is the updated language. You can see in bold the things that were changed. It is the change from additional to accessory, and then the last sentence in the first paragraph with the friendly emotion was to add and other infrastructure requirements. So you can see that has been amended here, and you do have the copies at the dais as well. Any questions?
This should be the time they would make an amendment to the amendment.
If you wanted to set a minimum.
Sylvia, what are your recommendations on amendment, but with the concerns that we've expressed?
So at the last meeting, I explained my prior city had a 50% maximum. So if your home was 1,200 square feet, you had a maximum of 600 square feet. With the advent of tiny homes, that falls out of kilter because you can have very small occupation. So we don't have any opposition to 400 square feet. So long as the other things remain in place, the necessary infrastructure can be met.
Councilperson Plunkett?
400 seems really small to me for, for example, if it was like a pool house or something like that you wanted to do that could also be used as a guest house. I mean, 400 is small. So I would rather have the 50% so that it scales with the size of the house that's existing. I'd be okay with that. But,
To a maximum? Would you have a maximum, sir, for example, as if it's
well, I mean, what if you had a
3,700?
10,000 square foot house, a mansion? I mean.
Or 3,700 square feet, or?
You're right. I mean, I could see, I could see a 10,000 square foot house having a, 5,000 square foot guest house, I guess. It's going to be on a 10-acre lot probably, and so, I guess I'd rather see it scale with the size of I don't have any other, I can't think of any other way to limit it that would scale, that would make sense for all,
We're not
all
opposed, staff, we're not opposed to any of that. What was important for us is to keep the integrity of a single-family neighborhood. And, the larger lots, they're just predisposed to having the space and the parking and those kinds of things, but it still doesn't deter from the fact that it was a single-family residential. So whatever the council would like to propose, we are not opposed to either.
Councilperson Foster.
I don't believe it's in the best public interest to propose anything tonight on the second reading. I'm happy for the 3 items that Mr. Serna mentioned to go through the process and go through P&Z and come back to us, because we have so much. What? No? I'm saying accept these. Pardon? But I mean, we can accept this as is, and that is a tremendous change already.
Yes,
That's a huge
yes,
win.
yes.
And then to take these tweaks back through, because we're going to be noticing the entire neighborhood, and they'll all be gathered in the same place, and we could be talking about it. It seems, for just the public input part of it, and for us to think about it more than 20 minutes of other scenarios, I just want more public input. So I would prefer to pass it as written this evening. That would be our second reading, and then it would be good. And then if we want to make any additional tweaks to it, it goes back through P&Z and then back to us, and then we'll be ready. We'll have time to start researching as well. That's my recommendation.
Councilperson Lee.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I was thinking that too, but I thought that there was some discussion about capping it based on density per acre.
That will be the discussion that we're bringing forward with these next 4 meetings, as we talk about what is an average lot size and, what's in that surrounding area.
But can that consideration be given to ADUs as well? Or is that where you're coming in with the 50% and it's going to end up being too big?
The 50% was a prior rule in Corpus Christi. That's just
Right.
the basis for.
But can that same consideration be given to ADUs with a capping it per?
I think the consideration that needs to be given is what's in the built environment, because we keep saying that we're trying to protect what's around us. We're trying to protect the historic nature, and the proposals that we're bringing forward do take that into account.
Okay, thank you.
So we can revisit the ADU per Councilmember Foster's request in that same vein.
Okay, thank you.
Now, we may end up being more restrictive. So, for example, if that particular neighborhood has no ADUs.
Back to cap per acre.
Councilperson Meyer.
Thank you. So I'm so not in favor of delaying any more. And I really think Councilmember Plunkett's idea of a maximum 50% makes sense. So I am happy to make a motion to accept as is with the addition of the maximum of 50% for ADU.
There's a motion on the table. Is there a second, council? Motion dies due to a lack of second.
I'll move to approve as is, and I think it'd be fine to re-look at any other additional restrictions we want to put and let it go through the process. I think that's fine.
Second.
A motion from Councilperson Plunkett, a second from Councilperson Lee. Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Plunkett?
Yes.
Councilmember Lee?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Foster?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Move on to 8G, consider an act on the second reading of ordinance 2025-02 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, amending the Code of Ordinances related to Chapter 14, the Bastrop Building Block B3 Code, Article 6.5, Building Type, Section 6503. Building standards per place type A, lot occupation is attached in Exhibit A, and providing for findings of fact, repeal or severability, codification, effective date, proper notice, and meeting.
Thank you. I'm not sure why this one was pulled.
I pulled it.
Perfect.
Yeah. I have a question for the city manager. So during the last meeting we had, went back and watched that, and the reasoning, or it might have been in the packet, I don't remember, but the reasoning for, one of the reasons for reducing the impervious cover was to accommodate the growth and strain on drainage. That was one of the reasons. So that started me thinking, a lot of that is because we haven't fixed the problems with our drainage. So if we're reducing impervious cover now because we're growing and our infrastructure can't handle it, where does this stop? Because 10 years from now, if we haven't improved our infrastructure for drainage, do we reduce the impervious cover in our codes more? It just made me start wondering, like, how much impervious cover are we going to take away if we don't fix what the problem is?
So one, I don't think we're taking away, because this goes back to previous standards. This is exactly what was in the prior standards. And I go back to what was in the built environment before, and drainage was built. Bar ditches and things were built because they were going to handle a certain amount of runoff, because those lots were expected to have a certain amount of cover. Construction has changed. We don't have a whole lot of things being built on pier and beam, and we have a lot of things that are just slab on grade that we are going to have to deal with. There is no way that this city has enough money to fix every single drainage line. And so in some instances, especially in the older parts of town, we almost have to remain with the built environment. And I'll just give you Buttonwood as a specific example. I'll give you Maine, Linden Farm, any one of those streets where the city at one point or another said that we were going to put underground drainage there so that we could improve the density in those areas. To put that kind of drainage means you have to cut away the street, you got to lower the water, you got to lower the wastewater, and you got to lower drainage. That's a lot of money over a period of time, and for what? To get an additional 20 or 30 homes will never recoup that type of investment, ever. The ad valorem would never catch up in terms of property value. So the easiest and the quickest way is to say, what was in the built environment? What did we build it for to begin with? And let's at least start there. If there are other significant flood-prone areas, let's look at those on a case-by-case basis. Most of the flooding in some of the areas that we have is because the street has been repaired and or replaced, and it's a little bit higher than where the ditches are, and we've created some dams, especially on some segments of Maine and Linden. And you can see the street sloughing away, but this was a start. 50% is already very, very reasonable for residential. I don't see us going much lower.
But that's also why we need to take a hard look at minimum lot sizes, because if someone subdivides a lot and puts 15 units on what was built for 9, that's going to cause more problems.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
So is there a motion for 8G?
Move to approve.
Second.
Councilperson Lee on the first, Councilperson Meyer on the second. Any other discussion, council? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Lee?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Plunkett?
Yes.
Councilmember Fossler?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Before we go on to the items for individual consideration, we're going to take 3 of them into executive session. So we're going to go into executive session under 551.071, consultation with an attorney. On item 9C, consider an act on resolution R 2025-22 approving the form and authorizing the distribution of a preliminary limited offering memorandum for City of Bastrop, Texas Special Assessment Revenue Bond Series 2025 providing for findings of fact, repeal or severability, proper notice meeting, and establishing an effective date. On item 9D, consider and act on Resolution 2025-23, determining costs of the proposed public improvements in the Valverde Public Improvement District, approving a proposed assessment rule for improvement area number 1, as shown in Exhibit A, and making related findings and determinations in accordance with Chapter 372 of the Texas Local Government Code. And then also, item 9G, discuss and consider adopting a resolution ordering and declaring certain November 2024 charter amendments adopted. So it is now 8:50 p.m. and council is in executive session. It is 9:42. We are back from executive session and into regular session. I'm going to take up action on items 9C and 9D. There's a motion.
Yes, on item 9C, I make a motion to postpone till our next regular meeting.
Second.
Councilperson Meyer and Councilperson Fossler.
Point of order, I move that we go to a voice voting.
We have a second motion on the table.
Second.
For the remainder of the meeting.
Second regular meeting would be, or the next regular meeting is February 11th.
So
we can. So, Madam City Secretary, will you please call for a vote on the motion to change the rules for the remainder of the meeting to take voice votes?
Who was the second? Okay. Councilmember Plunkett?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Lee?
Yes.
Councilmember Fossler?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. So now we are back to a motion on the table for postponing, or let's see, it's tabling item 9C until the next regular meeting, which is February 11th? Okay, February 11th,
Yes.
okay. And then who seconded that? You did. Yes, Councilperson Fossler. So is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. No naysayers. Motion passes unanimously. So motion on item 9D.
I make a motion to postpone 9D until our next regular meeting, which is February 11th.
Second.
Motion and a second from Councilpersons Meyer and Fossler. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Unanimous on 9D. We're going to take up item 9G, discuss and consider adopting a resolution ordering and declaring certain November 2024 charter amendments adopted. We had some discussion in executive session about this item. Mr. City Attorney, can you talk with us or tell us and the public about what's going on with the court cases surrounding marijuana legalization and the things that are taking place in other communities right now?
Well, in short, this body must fulfill its duties under Local Government Code 9.05A to adopt certain May 2024 charter amendments that were adopted. This issue has come up in other locations where there were ordinances. This proposal is a charter amendment, so it's factually distinguishable. But to be clear, this body needs to make a factual finding that Prop M, although passed by the voters, is preempted by state law and unenforceable. That's the legal conclusion and the finding that is in the resolution before this body. So that's what's being proposed, that you fulfill your duties to adopt certain May 2024 charter amendments that were adopted with the exception of Prop M, because if you go against the preemption, the city would be subject to potential lawsuit by the state of Texas. So that's the recommendation based on this emerging area of the law.
Move to approve all the propositions with the exception of M.
Second?
We have a motion from Councilperson Plunkett and a second from Councilperson Meyer. Is there any other discussion? Councilperson Lee?
Thank you. I just wanted to explain my vote. I would like M to be included in the approval of all of the charter amendments because that's what the voters wanted. Understanding what the law is, I understand that as well, but if the law provides an opportunity or a way for residents to petition for something and that they follow that process and petition for it, and that's the end result is what it is, I'm going to have to stick with the voters on this one.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on item 9G, which, more discussion. Councilperson Meyer.
Yeah, just one more addition. Whether we vote, however we vote on this one, nobody's against the voters. We are trying to say, looking forward, as our attorney said, there will be a lawsuit, and that means a lot of taxpayer money would be used. So I think everybody up here is for the voters. I'm pretty sure we all are. So it's not a decision of for or against our people because I couldn't stand stronger for our citizens. So I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, we have a rough estimate of $400,000 in legal expenses we would have to pay to attorneys to fight lawsuits from the state of Texas if we adopted Proposition M through this process. Councilperson Foster.
I'm just also weighing heavily. It's not an easy vote, so I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Okay. So we have a motion on the table to approve the resolution for charter amendments excluding Proposition M. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
We have 2 opposed, Councilperson Lee and Councilperson Foster, which means the Mayor Pro Tem gets to break the tie. I'm going to vote yes. So the motion passes. Okay. Item 9A, items for individual consideration. Consider and act on Resolution 2025-26 approving the Bastrop Bird Junction Project proposed 9 location and proposed outdoor bird sculptures, and consider action to approve the next round of proposed locations and proposed outdoor bird sculptures for locations 3, 4, and 6 as identified in Exhibit A, located within the city limits of Bastrop, Texas, and so on.
Hello, Council, Mayor Pro Tem, Michaela Joyce, Main Street Manager, but I also wear the hat of the Cultural Arts Commission Staff Liaison. So this was originally brought to you guys back in April for the original 9 bird locations. You guys approved statues 1, 2, and 5 at that point. I wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update on those 3 before I jump into the next 3. We hit a little bit of a hiccup with TxDOT on getting approvals for the 2 out on 95, but I'm happy to say that's all moving forward. We're actually actively pouring concrete this week, so we're really excited. We're going to be unveiling the next 2 statues over there on 95 within the next 2 months. So excited to see those come to the finish line. So what I have before you tonight is the next 3 bird statue locations. Those will be, and if you hit the next slide for me, they're listed up there. This is a screen grab from what's in the packet, but it'll be statues number 3, 4, and 6. So they're all directly across the way from us. Number 3 is a little bit of a unique one. So it's kind of hard to tell in that picture. It's actually on the pedestrian bridge there. We have a concept idea of, these different birds coming off. And that's not an exact drawing of what we're doing, but that's kind of an idea concept. And so we're excited to see that one. Basically, we just need your guys' permission at this point in time to pursue moving forward with those locations. We'll pursue art calls for the next 3. And then I won't go too far into the details, but the next 3, after these 3, 2 of them are proposed currently for downtown, directly on Main Street on the sidewalks. We have some concerns that have been raised for those. So at this point in time, we are doing some research, weighing the pros and cons of what those locations would look like, and then potentially bringing up potential new locations. So we're in the process of those. That's why we've only brought these 3 to you guys today for approval. Any questions?
When we discussed number 3 at Cultural Arts Commission, I'd like us to focus on things like vandalism and kids swinging from them and, just being smaller in scale and on something that looks like it might be fun to swing from. We should at least consider, what's the wisest path.
Absolutely. And I briefly had mentioned to talk to Doc, our Development Services Director, about height requirements to hopefully combat that.
Yes.
So definitely those will all be considered to make sure that they're the safest and not going to be vandalized ideally. So.
Yeah. Council, any questions? Any motions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Councilperson Fossler and Plunkett, any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Move on to item 9B, consider an act on resolution R 2025-28 approving the execution of a term contract with Holbrook Asphalt Company in an amount not to exceed $855,000 for the purchase of high-density mineral bond seal HA5 treatment for asphalt pavement and traffic control through use of the City of Hearst interlocal purchasing agreement previously approved by resolution 24-16 and so on.
Mayor Pro Tem, Council, we've seen this item quite a few times, and this is going to be the 2025 phase 1. I think we're on, right, John? This is going to be phase 1 of 2025 for the HA5 street program. I'll go through a couple of the streets that are coming. They're going to be involved with this. Bear Hunter Drive, Duff Drive, this is over in the Hunters Crossing area. All of Pecan Park subdivision, Eskew, Maynard, Hassler, and Perkins. These are some streets out in Tahitian, Hamanu, Pahala, Ola, Aloha. I'm not even going to try the rest of them. And so those streets labeled there are going to get the treatment, as well as Spring, Austin, Hazel, and Jackson, and just the segments that you see highlighted in red of those streets. And then on the other portion of the main area of town, Pecan Street, Jefferson, Beach, Hill, Cedar, Carter, and Albright, Buttonwood, you'll see all those in red, and I believe that is it. So we're asking for permission to approve the contract with HA5. It's been a good product.
Councilperson Lee.
Thank you. What's the street between Pecan and Cedar? There's Jefferson, and then there's like the red lines there.
The one that kind of jogs down? It's probably Buttonwood.
Kind of faded, so that's...
It's either Buttonwood or Beach, one or the other. I think it's Buttonwood. Buttonwood kind of goes across and then drops and then goes across again.
So and that one's slated?
Yes. Yeah, from Pecan to Fayette Street, that's Buttonwood.
And that's HA5. That's the same one Commissioner Carmack was offering to loan the equipment from Wilson to Pecan.
So on the HA5, I guess when it was first laid, I was like, oh, these roads are gorgeous. They're beautiful. I'm starting to see like the cracks in the lines. So, and I'm also, it doesn't feel like it's riding as smooth. So what's the longevity? Because I thought it was going to stay pretty and black and forever. And now on Pecan, at least, I've noticed I've started seeing the crack seal.
John, do you have a question? Do you have an answer? You want to come up? Come up. Just come up.
And it's feeling rougher. So is it supposed to just kind of seal that oil or minerals or whatever it is?
Yeah,
in,
it's
but
just
you're
kind
still
of
going to
a-
see the other?
It's kind of a sealer. It's not going to get you a better ride. It's just kind of holding things together. That chip seal was trying to ravel, come up because of the trash truck and the turning and stuff like that. So this just locks it all down.
It did at first, though. When it was first laid, I mean, the ride was much smoother,
Yeah.
like a brand new paved street, basically. And just, I would say last week was when I first noticed that I was seeing the crack seals again. So I thought it was going to stay pretty smooth, but this material is not for aesthetics, is what I gathered. It's just for...
Primary focus is keeping water out.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's a sealer. That's all.
Because people will ask eventually,
Yeah.
like, what
And
happened to
we
the
do
road?
have a warranty period, and so we can get 5-year warranty period on it, and so we can get them to, when they're here. And I'm assuming, John, that y'all drove around and they looked at the streets. Every time they come in, they drive around and they look at the streets. I believe they are redoing one of the sections I saw on here is Hazel Street. They're going to redo a section that somebody drove through, it looked like.
Yes.
And so they are aware. We'll get them to recheck it and make sure. But yeah, it's just a seal to keep the water from penetrating so we don't create potholes and other things.
Yeah, when they came in October and November, they drove around and looked at everything that we had done previous, and they found a few spots and went back and fixed it on their nickel, and so they're going to continue to do that.
Like, it's not a pothole or anything, but
No.
I noticed that I could see the old stuff, and
Yes.
the ride had gotten a little rougher. So, and that was south of the railroad tracks
Yes, ma'am.
on Pecan.
Any other questions?
Councilperson Foster.
I'd just like to give a compliment. When I got to this part of the packet, I got very excited and screenshotted it and sent it out to all the people, and everyone's very excited, so thank you.
Colin will get this online again like we did previously, and we have not forgot about Water Street. We will be doing Water Street. It's just not on here yet.
Well, you can't fix Water Street with,
No,
with this.
not yet. We're waiting. We have to wait for probably about March, April. We're going to try to get that going, but we're waiting for the better weather to come. It can't be cool in order for it. We want to do it right.
Great.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you, John.
This is stereo here. Let's give it to Plunkett and Foster. And we have a motion on the table. Any other discussion? Councilperson Lee, your light is on, I assume. Okay, yeah, cool. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Council, we are more or less out of time. We have 2 items left on the agenda. Might there be a motion to extend for maybe 10 minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. We'll extend until 10:10. If we need that long, let's move on to item 9E. Consider an act on resolution 2025-21 approving change order 2 with bar constructors for a deduction of $31,003.50 to the contract price on an addition of 78 calendar days to the contract time, officially granting full approval of cost proposals 01R4, 0203R1, 10R2, 11R1, 12R1, 13R1, 17, 19, 21, 23R1, 24, 25, 26, 31, 36, 37, 41R1, 42, 43, and 45 as part of the wastewater treatment plant number 3 project. That's just cruel. You're going to make people read all that?
My apologies.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, sorry. Mayor Pro Tem Council, yes, we're discussing, and these are all of the cost proposals that were bundled up into this change order. This is a deduction order. As you can see here in the yellow up top, that's the original contract amount. The change order number 1, which you've already approved, to change order number 2 is the middle box there. You'll see the increase of $272,219, which brought the contract amount to $26,641. And then the red on the bottom is this change orders documentation. We're deducting $31,000, and it brings the new contract amount to $26,610,215. And then you'll see the days on the right side. Those are the days that we're calculating. We're asking for your approval. And any questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second from Councilperson Plunkett and Meyer. Is there any other questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Move on to item 9F. Consider and act on resolution number R25-27, approving change order number 3 with Bar Constructors in the amount of $132,343.60, officially granting partial approval of cost proposals 05C, 09R1, 15A, 22R2, 29R1, and 46R1 as part of the wastewater treatment plant number 3 project.
Mayor Pro Tem, Council. So this one is approving, and we put partial because it is a partial approval. So in the cost proposals, they have costs associated with material and certain items, and then there'll be a breakout for days. And so we didn't approve some of the days that are listed in here. We're still negotiating, or not negotiating, but having discussions with the legal team for us as to how many days and that kind of stuff. So we're still working that out, but we don't want to penalize Bar for that. So we want to go ahead and get them paid on the materials side so they can start paying their contractors. So that's what this is bringing that forward. Any questions? Again, this is the breakdown. You'll see that the top, the yellow, was from change order 1 to change order 3, the dollar amounts that have changed. Price after change order 2 was the 26 from the previous slides, or previous item. Change order 3 adds $132,343 to the contract for a total amount of $26,742,559.59. And you note that the calendar days, it was marked out because we haven't finalized that yet. You'll see a change order 4 that'll come forward, that'll have all the final, hopefully final will be change order number 4 to final and complete this after we have some final discussions with legal as well as the contractor. Any questions?
Councilperson Lee.
Thank you. How far behind are we on paying?
How
these
far
guys?
behind on
Yeah.
paying, like paying the contractor?
Yeah. I mean, they haven't been paid?
No, they've been paid for several. These were either cost proposals that made changes. So we've paid Bar for pretty much everything except for a very small amount these are closing up. These are closing up the changes that were done. And then we have the days that we have to figure out the liquidated damages portions that we're still working through. Bar has been paid through all of the items except for the cost proposal, the changes that were made to these. So you had the original amount for the job that was done for that item. So let me back up. So like this one, like testing, they would have gotten paid for the functional testing, the original portion, but then let's say there was an widget that needed to be changed and we had to pay for that widget to be changed. This is changing that item and bringing it forward. Does that make sense? I hope I'm explaining it correctly.
Yeah, I guess you said that they hadn't been paid. So I'm like,
So-
what do you mean they haven't been paid?
Well, let me explain.
So you made a reference like we need
Yeah.
to pay these guys, so we need y'all to. But why hadn't they been paid? 1, and then 2, why are we not approving change orders as they happen instead of
Okay.
lumping them all?
Great question. Great question. So KSA, which we discussed in executive session many times, what I'm doing right now and what our legal team and our staff internally has been doing, as well as a consultant has been doing, KSA should have been doing, right? That was what we hired them to do. But because we have went through the termination of their contract, the city, had to pick this up and get it over the finish line. So what should have been done incrementally over the last couple of years, we are having to do all at one time. And on top of that, we did not receive any documents and yet to have received any documents from KSA. So we had to recreate all of these from scratch, go back through and work these out with Bar. And we had to go through every single cost proposal, every single item of the wastewater treatment plant to verify these dollar amounts, to verify the days. And we've had lots. And so we started this in 2020. It's 2024, right? Or later than that. So we've had to take 4 years worth of information and try to get it done in a short amount of time because we do want to get Bar paid. We do want to get those things taken care of. And so, but at the same time, we want to make sure we're spending the money correctly. It's taxpayers' money. And when I put my signature on it, and I'm sure when Sylvia puts her signature on it, we want to make sure it's legal, it's done right, and it's
So you're saying KSA did none of this before we?
so they had started down, so like some of these you'll see when,
So Councilmember Lee, it's important to understand, so a design is just a design. When they go into the field, they're going to experience field issues.
Yes.
There's going to be a change. There's going to be something. What happens is the contractor, BAR, in this case, submits a request for information with a change request. There are things that BAR had to do, or we weren't going to be able to move forward. Some of this is an accumulation of that, where KSA just either didn't approve it, sat on their hands, or just altogether changed project managers, et cetera, et cetera.
correct.
That's a whole different question on the engineers who were watching this project also. But some of these are subcontractors that need to get paid also through BAR.
That's what I was concerned
Yeah,
about.
super, super, super important.
Yes. But we've been communicating with all the subs, and we've been communicating with BAR saying, look, we're working through this, we're getting the paperwork, we're expediting the reviews, we're doing all of this stuff, we're doing it all in-house, and so we have taken probably what they would have done over a 2-year period during the construction and crammed it into, we probably started on this in, I don't know, probably late summer portion, right after substantial completion, which would have been in May.
Are we done
Are we done with the project?
with the change orders?
Yeah, so yes, so you'll see.
We shouldn't see any more change
No,
orders.
you'll see one more change order. That's the final change order to final out the number of days, the liquidated damages that we have to figure out. And we have a meeting next week with legal to vet all that, get it all done, because there are some issues that we have to work out that by closing the project out, we don't want to risk future litigation should it have to go that way.
Right. Okay, thank you. I'll move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second from Councilperson Lee and Councilperson Foster. Do you have any?
No,
Okay.
I'm good.
Oh, number 5.
I want to say thank you for manually doing all that and recreating it and with such precision. Thank you.
Yes,
Sure.
there's lots of staff. Yes, lots of time, lots of staff.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it unanimously for item 9F. That takes us on to item number 10, adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Kevin Plunkett and Councilperson Lee. And so upon the completion of our business and the motion and second to adjourn, we are adjourned.